How you doing, Bob? Another week for Citizens for a Better Broome podcast.
Hi, Andy. Good to hear from you, and nice you folks to be listening. We're Citizens for a Better Broome, not local nonprofit. That's all about watching out for your interests when it comes to local government here in Broome County. We like smaller government, less intrusion, lower taxes, accountability. We meet the first Monday of every month. This will be the 6th. We'll be coming up here
It's Monday. We'll
next
have our
Monday.
meeting. Yep.
Yeah, 6 p.m. at Thirsties over on South Washington. Join us if you'd like. There's no admission fee, except you buy us a couple beers maybe, and we'll have some food and drink and conversation and kick some ideas around, kick some of those around with you guys today on this podcast. Andy, what do you got?
Happy to report there's some more releases from the New York City DA about some of the interesting findings after on their interviews from the Cuomo resignation. But the Fredo has been that's Andrew Cuomo has been CNN is investigating him because of some of the releases that he might not have been truthful with his audience. Can you imagine that?
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
A reporter for CNN not being truthful.
Yeah. What audience? How did they catch it? Nobody listens anyway.
Well, I'll add to this is that also the SUNY chancellor, Jim Maltreus, has said he's not going to resign because somehow he is swept up in this with attempts to silence some of the accusers against Cuomo.
I hadn't heard that, but it doesn't surprise me. The web is very well established.
You know, they're beholden. He's like the Godfather, Cuomo, and everybody's beholden to him, or they got something on him. That's the other thing.
Well, look what happened to the last chancellor there at the Nanotech Institute. Ended up in prison, I think, for inside dealings. What was his name up in Albany?
I don't know.
That was part of that the Buffalo billion thing.
Yeah, exactly, and that $1 billion. That and the solar array that they had built, $1 billion that they never put one post in the ground. And where'd the money go?
Well, exactly.
And Cuomo had to put in a particular line item to for that project. Or
he's dirty.
Obama.
Dirty,
Did I say Obama?
He's gone.
Yeah.
No, he's dirty, and I'm glad he's gone. And no, you said Cuomo.
I also picked up on this. So this New York City man was arrested 3 times in 36 hours. And the last time they finally, the judge said, well, you're going to have to post bail. But because of the bail reform, the other 2, and the second offense was a knife, robbed somebody at knife point. And that doesn't qualify to be put in jail, at least to be held.
Yeah, this is a ongoing problem in New York with this reform, and they're doubling down on it, Andy. They actually want to do more in that regard, to change some of the rules and make it even lighter on crime. I think it's a mistaken notion that if fewer people are in jail, the world is safer. I think that's what a lot of liberals are convinced of, is that if you simply let these people out and tell them that they're really not bad people and that they'll just quit committing crimes. I mean, obviously that's not going to work, but I think they have to go through the machinations of trying it to convince themselves it was a dumb idea.
Well, and
unfortunately, public at large pays for it by being victimized by these criminals.
Sure. Insurance rates and everything else goes up. And it goes along the lines with the homeless that are addicted. You know, the idea is that if you keep building buildings and homes and sticking them in the homes and giving them housing, free public housing, that they'll, somehow they're going to kick their addiction and be able to go back to work. Well, what's happened is that all these homeless buildings that have been put up, I mean, they're trashed within a few years and they end up back on the street doing the same thing. Robbing and stealing for their habit. I don't know what the answer is, but been said many times, they keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Again, out in California, I mean, it's a runaway. People.
Well, it's pretty straightforward. You and I are parents. We've now into grandparenting and stuff, and the way that we raised our children was accountability, accepting responsibility for your actions, accepting the consequences of your actions, sometimes allowing those around you who you love to fail purposely so that they can learn the lesson better than if you just tell them that if you do X, it's going to turn out bad. Sometimes some kids, many kids, mine included, needed to learn that lesson by actually failing because they didn't believe that they were going to fail. So that's the same theory holds true with everyone in society. If you don't hold people accountable, if you don't, make it conducive for them to have to work as opposed to making it a choice, well, those people who were never had a good upbringing about hard work and personal responsibility, they're going to react to the lowest common denominator, which is what's the easiest thing for me to do. It shouldn't surprise anyone that when you create a situation like that, it gets worse because you've sapped the consciousness out of someone, their very will to be alive. They don't have a purpose. And so you should expect bad behavior to come from that. And that's exactly what's happened here in the name of buying votes and appeasing certain segments of big labor and labor unions to continue to stay in office. It's really quite simple, but it's very insidious at the same time.
Well, I question whether how many of that element is actually voting homeless and the drug users, et cetera. And that leads into another question that New York City moving towards having non-citizens, giving the 800,000 illegal aliens, according to the story here, they want to give them the right to vote in New York City. Now you talk about buying votes.
This is a concept that's been going on in the more liberal areas of our country for a couple of years with local elections, because that's the only place you can do it legally. You can change the local laws. You can't do that federally, but it's coming to a city, state near you. And as far as, about buying votes, what I said, it's not so much the vote of the homeless person. It's the vote of the people who run the homeless infrastructure. It's those people who do the counseling, who do the uptakes and intakes, the housing, the criminal justice system, the education system. It's all those lobby groups that benefit from serving that community. That's votes you're buying, and you're buying the backing of their unions to get you reelected. So yeah, it's a insidious problem. And
well, beyond that too is this mass looting of the country, which is happening in the metro areas, and as you had said, locally here in our own town, where 20 or 30 people just do a smash and crash into a store and clean it out. Like that's okay. I mean, stealing hammers from Lowe's, what are you going to do with how many hammers are on the shelf? 4 or 5 or 6, and they grab those and run out? There's no rule of law.
You can hit the jewelry store next across town. How are you going to smash a jewelry store without a good hammer?
What's the rule of law? I saw this, sadly, that this security guard that was killed defending this news crew out in Oakland. They were stealing the mass looting events. 10 or 15 cars pull up, everybody runs out, smash and grab, and they're gone. Well, a little further down the road, what was a situation where another store was getting robbed and 2 policemen are sitting in their cars watching it unfold. And they basically were questioned on that. And they had said, well, we're not going in, 2 of us against this mob. Not a chance. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but they're not going to risk their lives.
Right.
Now, they obviously signed up for the job and they knew what it was, but we've got to give these guys and gals some help here. And I think it's at all levels, at all towns, regardless of size.
Well, again, when you see an act like that, where you've got multiple people jumping out of what I see as late model, nice vehicles,
with these videos,
going into a Neiman Marcus or a Tiffany's or whatever and smashing and grabbing, it's that sense of entitlement somehow that completely vindicates them from any responsibility. I mean, the only way you can do that is to be conscienceless. I mean, you and I and the people around us don't even think about that. It's so foreign to our way of life, of our values. And
right.
So now you've got these are valueless people. Not that they don't have any value, which is arguable, but they don't have any concern for anything else but themselves. I really think they should forfeit the right to breathe.
Well, these progressives, administrations in various cities throughout the country, well, guess what? Now you got it. And what's happening? Like in what's happened in Minneapolis and St. Paul, people are voting with their feet. They are leaving.
Right.
And what's the signal there is that the school districts there in St. Paul and in Minneapolis, they've lost 30%. And now that they've got such a budget deficit, and they're debating, they're trying to beautify, trying to put lipstick on this pig, and it'll be, it's ongoing. The answer is to get your city up because crime is rampant, and these counselors to go out and to speak to, if there's a crime being committed, well, they want more counseling rather than, okay, a guy's got a knife and I'm stabbing this person. No,
well, until we go back to the very basics of tough on crime, accountability, laws, and when they're broken, there's consequences. When you go to jail, it's a bad place to be. You don't want to be there. As long as those things don't exist in the old fashioned way, then of course people are going to keep testing the limits because that's what people do. It's just a sad state of affairs that we're living through it.
Yeah. And it's in real time. We're watching it. Well, the last thing that I'll bring up today is there was an article, the BC Transit is looking for, to increase their ridership. My question is why don't they condense some of the schedules and some of the routes instead of running these buses, as you've talked about many times, up and down, basically empty?
Well, better question. If they've got a ridership problem, it means fewer people need the ride. That means get rid of half the buses. How about that? Get rid of half the buses, cut your staff in half.
Right, exactly.
And that's it. I mean, if there's less demand, then shrink the supply. Duh.
Yeah.
And you just said it, Andy. I have talked about this many times, and it goes on day to day to day. You could run these freaking bus lines with a sidecar and a motorcycle, most of them, because there's 2 or 3 people in the bus. I don't think I've ever seen since COVID started more than 4 people in the number 40 bus that runs up and down Shenango Street and over to Shenango Bridge and back down Front Street over to Lowe's and that way. I'm honest to God, right up Shenango Street, and I see it every day. Yeah. Sometimes 0 people, at the most 4. Get a van, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, and try it out from there. And if
we're talking about getting new buses that are hybrid. Jesus, God, these things will hold 50 or 60 people. I don't give a shit how hybrid it is. It's still not as efficient as a gas-powered van. And you don't need that kind of capacity when you don't have any passengers. You know what it is, Andy, and I've talked about it before. 50% of the money comes from the feds. 25% of it comes from the state. So nobody gives a good goddamn as to whether or not it's money well spent.
Broome County residents are on the hook for the benefit packages. We're on the hook for the retirements.
Yeah, their legacy medical costs, their benefit package, the retirement fund, the whole enchilada.
And we will be going forward, even if we do get the motorcycle with the sidecar. But at least going forward, we'll have it. Some reduction in tax, or at least we'll stay even. Well, anyway, that'll be it for today.
Okay, well, folks, again, thanks for listening. Citizens for a Better Broome on Facebook, bobkingsley.com. We'll get you to a lot of things that I've written about will be of interest, I hope. And join us on the 6th, 6 p.m. at Thirsties, and we'll see you the next time. Andy, thanks so much.
Thank you.